Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, commonly known as MBS, was born on August 31st, 1985, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He is the son of King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, the current king of Saudi Arabia, and his third wife, Princess Fahda bint Fala bin Sultan. His upbringing in the royal family allowed him to gain significant exposure to governance, politics, and international relations from an early age. Mohammed bin Salman attended King Saud University in Riyadh, where he studied law. Although he did not pursue a career in law, his academic foundation gave him insights into the workings of the state and the legal system. His rise to prominence began in 2009 when he was appointed as a special advisor to his father, who was then the governor of Riyadh province. MBS quickly became known for his sharp mind and innovative ideas. In 2015, when his father ascended to the throne as the king of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman was appointed crown prince and deputy prime minister, making him the effective ruler of the country. His elevation to crown prince was marked by significant political and economic reforms aimed at modernizing Saudi Arabia and reducing its dependence on oil. This vision came to fruition through his ambitious program known as Vision 2030, which sought to diversify the Saudi economy, attract foreign investment, and develop sectors like tourism, entertainment, and technology. One of his most prominent initiatives has been the creation of NEOM, a futuristic megacity located on the Red Sea coast, which he envisions as a global hub for technology, innovation, and sustainable development. NEOM is intended to be a showcase of modernity, blending cutting-edge technologies with commitment to environmental sustainability. His drive for modernization also led to the easing of some restrictions on women in Saudi Arabia, including allowing them to drive and increasing their participation in the workforce. Mohammed bin Salman has also been a key figure in Saudi Arabia's foreign policy. He has played a major role in the kingdom's intervention in Yemen, aiming to counter Houthi rebels aligned with Iran, although the conflict has been criticized for its humanitarian toll. Additionally, he has sought to strengthen ties with Western powers, particularly the United States, while also attempting to balance relations with regional rivals, including Iran. However, MBS's leadership has been marred by controversy, particularly concerning human rights and political dissent. His role in the 2018 murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post columnist, has drawn international condemnation, with many questioning his involvement in the assassination carried out by Saudi operatives in Turkey. Despite this, he has maintained a firm grip on power within the kingdom and continues to push forward with his reform agenda. Despite the challenges, MBS has garnered significant support domestically, where he is seen as a modernizer who is shaping Saudi Arabia for a new era. His economic reforms have led to some growth in the non-oil sectors of the economy, although the pace of change has often been slower than anticipated. Internationally, he has been portrayed as a strong and assertive leader, although his actions continue to provoke debate about the balance between modernization and maintaining the traditional power structures within Saudi Arabia. As Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman has emerged as one of the most influential figures in the Middle East, shaping not only the future of Saudi Arabia but also the broader geopolitical landscape of the region. His leadership is expected to have lasting effects on Saudi society, its global standing, and its future trajectory. Mohammed bin Salman's leadership style is often described as assertive and centralizing, with a focus on reshaping Saudi Arabia's social and economic landscape. While he has introduced various reforms and modernization efforts, many critics argue that his rise to power has also been accompanied by a significant consolidation of authority. Under his leadership, there has been a tightening of political control, with a suppression of dissent and criticism. Notably, in 2017, MBS spearheaded an anti-corruption crackdown that saw the arrest of numerous prominent Saudi princes, businessmen, and officials, some of whom were detained in the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton Hotel. While the crackdown was framed as an effort to combat corruption, it was also seen by many as a power play to remove potential rivals and consolidate his influence. Mohammed bin Salman has also redefined the role of the monarchy within the context of Saudi Arabia's traditional conservative society. As a more modern and youthful figure, he has sought to connect with younger generations by embracing new technologies, entertainment, and social reforms. In 2018, the Saudi government allowed women to attend public sporting events for the first time in decades, and the following year, they were granted the right to drive. These actions were part of his broader plan to improve the image of Saudi Arabia internationally and make the kingdom more appealing to foreign investors and tourists. Under Vision 2030, MBS has focused heavily on the diversification of the Saudi economy. He has prioritized the development of new sectors such as entertainment, tourism, and technology, while attempting to reduce the kingdom's reliance on oil revenues. The introduction of initiatives like the Public Investment Fund (PIF), a sovereign wealth fund aimed at investing in global markets, and the launching of megaprojects such as NEOM and the Red Sea Project demonstrate his ambition to transform Saudi Arabia into a global investment hub. These efforts have attracted attention and investments from global companies and governments, although the full impact of these projects remains to be seen. The Crown Prince's foreign policy has also been a key element of his leadership. His approach has been marked by both cooperation and confrontation. MBS has sought to strengthen ties with Western nations, particularly the United States, while also fostering relationships with China and Russia. He has played a pivotal role in Saudi Arabia's efforts to curb Iranian influence in the region, leading the kingdom into a proxy conflict with Iran through its involvement in Yemen, a war that has led to a humanitarian crisis and widespread criticism from human rights organizations. Furthermore, his policies in the Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) have been central to shaping the dynamics of the region. MBS has been a key player in the blockade of Qatar, initiated by Saudi Arabia and its allies in 2017. The embargo was aimed at isolating Qatar, accusing it of supporting terrorism and fostering ties with Iran, though the dispute also reflected broader regional power struggles. While the blockade was lifted in early 2021, it highlighted the diplomatic and geopolitical challenges faced by the region under MBS's leadership. Despite his efforts to modernize Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman's rule has not been without controversy. Human rights organizations have raised concerns over the suppression of freedom of expression, including the targeting of activists, intellectuals, and journalists who have criticized the government. The killing of Jamal Khashoggi, a prominent critic of the regime, in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, brought international condemnation and led to a diplomatic rift with several countries, despite MBS's denials of personal involvement. The episode remains a defining moment in his leadership, complicating Saudi Arabia's relations with the West, particularly in regard to issues of human rights and the rule of law. Nonetheless, MBS remains a powerful figure within Saudi Arabia and continues to push forward with his vision of a modernized, diversified, and globally connected kingdom. His leadership represents a complex blend of progressive reforms and authoritarian control as he navigates both domestic challenges and a volatile regional environment. While his tenure as Crown Prince has been marked by ambitious reforms, the future of Saudi Arabia under his rule will depend on his ability to balance modernization with maintaining the traditional power structures and ensuring stability within the kingdom. The impact of his policies on both Saudi Arabia and the broader Middle East will likely be felt for generations to come, making him one of the most consequential figures in the region's contemporary history. As Mohammed bin Salman continues to assert his influence both domestically and internationally, his leadership is likely to face several key challenges that will shape the future trajectory of Saudi Arabia. One of the most pressing challenges is a balancing act between maintaining social stability while implementing economic and social reforms. His Vision 2030 plan seeks to shift Saudi Arabia away from its dependence on oil and diversify the economy into areas such as entertainment, technology, and renewable energy. However, the transition is not without its difficulties. The kingdom faces a youth unemployment crisis, and many Saudi citizens, particularly those in rural areas, may be resistant to rapid changes. The success of Vision 2030 depends largely on how effectively MBS can implement his reforms while addressing concerns of different segments of society. Another challenge for Mohammed bin Salman is a continued global perception of Saudi Arabia, particularly after the Khashoggi incident. Despite his efforts to position himself as a reformer, MBS remains a controversial figure on the international stage. While he has pursued economic reforms and tried to diversify the economy, human rights concerns continue to tarnish his image. International scrutiny over human rights violations, including crackdowns on dissent, repression of women's rights activists, and the ongoing war in Yemen, will continue to be obstacles in Saudi Arabia's relations with Western nations and human rights organizations. Moreover, MBS faces a delicate balancing act in terms of maintaining the delicate social fabric of Saudi society. While he has championed reforms aimed at modernizing the kingdom, such as lifting restrictions on women, promoting a more open entertainment industry, and encouraging foreign investment. Many elements of Saudi Arabia's deeply conservative society continue to resist these changes. He has navigated this tension by presenting himself as a reformer while maintaining strong ties to the conservative religious establishment, which has been instrumental in the legitimacy of the Saudi monarchy. His ability to manage these competing forces, without alienating either conservative factions or reform-minded segments of the population, will be crucial to his long-term success. Regionally, MBS's confrontational stance toward Iran continues to fuel tensions across the Middle East. Saudi Arabia's rivalry with Iran has played a central role in shaping Middle Eastern geopolitics, particularly in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. While MBS has positioned Saudi Arabia as a leader in opposing Iranian influence in the region, this has led to costly and protracted conflicts, most notably in Yemen, where the Saudi-led coalition's military intervention has drawn widespread criticism for its devastating humanitarian impact. The war in Yemen, which has led to tens of thousands of deaths and a massive humanitarian crisis, remains one of the most contentious aspects of MBS's foreign policy. While his administration maintains that the intervention is necessary to curb Iranian influence, the prolonged conflict has become a source of international outrage and has strained Saudi Arabia's relations with key allies. On the global stage, Mohammed bin Salman's leadership has sparked a growing interest in Saudi Arabia's role in shaping the future of global energy markets. As the world increasingly turns toward renewable energy sources, MBS has emphasized Saudi Arabia's commitment to diversifying its energy production, including investing in clean energy projects and reducing the kingdom's reliance on oil. In 2020, Saudi Arabia announced plans to build the world's largest green hydrogen plant in NEOM, a sign of the kingdom's ambition to play a key role in the renewable energy sector. The kingdom's position as a major oil producer remains critical to its economy, but MBS is focused on positioning Saudi Arabia as a leader in the green energy transition, aiming to lead the way in developing new technologies that will shape the global energy landscape in the coming decades. Internally, MBS has pursued initiatives designed to foster Saudi Arabia's cultural and entertainment sectors. These initiatives have included the creation of world-class entertainment venues, hosting major international events, and the opening of cinemas and concerts in a country where such activities were once forbidden. One of the most high-profile events was the hosting of the Saudi Arabian Formula E race in 2020, part of his broader push to attract tourists and investors. His social reforms, including lifting the ban on women driving and granting them more opportunities to participate in public life, have attracted praise internationally, although some critics argue that these changes have not been accompanied by a fundamental shift in the underlying political system, where freedoms of expression and assembly remain tightly controlled. On the global stage, MBS is increasingly seen as a leader with a clear vision for Saudi Arabia's future, although his leadership is a subject of intense scrutiny. He has worked to bolster Saudi Arabia's image as a modern and forward-thinking nation, especially through major international partnerships with countries such as the United States, China, and other regional powers. However, his vision is often clouded by his controversial actions, such as the crackdown on dissent, the war in Yemen, and the Khashoggi killing. These issues continue to raise questions about his leadership and his willingness to balance reform with political and personal power. In conclusion, Mohammed bin Salman remains one of the most influential and ambitious figures in Saudi Arabia's history. His tenure as crown prince has been marked by significant changes, both in terms of economic modernization and social reforms. His ambitious Vision 2030 plan has reshaped the kingdom's long-term development trajectory, but its success hinges on overcoming significant challenges related to human rights, social resistance, and regional instability. MBS's assertive foreign policy, especially with regard to Iran and Yemen, has reinforced his position as a strong leader, but it has also made Saudi Arabia a focal point of conflict in the Middle East. How he navigates the complex political and social landscape at home, and how Saudi Arabia positions itself in a rapidly changing global environment, will determine his legacy and the future of the kingdom for generations to come. As Mohammed bin Salman continues his reign as Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, his leadership will be further shaped by both the evolving regional and global dynamics, as well as the internal challenges the kingdom faces. His ability to reconcile the competing forces of tradition and modernity, manage the expectations of the younger Saudi population, and deal with the persistent international scrutiny over human rights will likely define his legacy. One of the main areas of focus for MBS remains economic transformation. Saudi Arabia's reliance on oil has long been its economic foundation, but MBS's push for diversification under Vision 2030 is central to the country's long-term sustainability. The Public Investment Fund, PIF, which has grown into one of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds, plays a critical role in this transformation. MBS is focused on massive investments in international companies and emerging technologies, as well as domestic projects like the Red Sea Project, which is designed to transform the country's tourism and entertainment sectors. These ventures have drawn significant foreign investment, particularly from Western companies, positioning the kingdom as a key player in the global economy. However, MBS's ambitious plans face considerable challenges. The global oil market remains volatile, and the transition away from oil has yet to reach the scale necessary for the kingdom to truly become economically diversified. The coronavirus pandemic has also exacerbated these challenges by disrupting global markets and reducing demand for oil. Although Vision 2030 aims to reduce Saudi Arabia's dependence on oil, the kingdom must still navigate the complex realities of global energy transitions, as well as the socio-economic impact of shifting from a primarily oil-based economy to one that encompasses a broader range of industries. On the social front, MBS's reforms continue to reshape Saudi Arabia's conservative social fabric. While he has made strides in allowing women more rights and freedoms, such as permitting them to drive and encouraging their participation in the workforce, critics argue that these changes are more superficial than transformative. Although significant, these reforms have not led to broader democratic changes or allowed for more political freedoms. His government's harsh crackdown on activists, journalists, and political dissidents suggests that MBS's vision of modernization remains tied to maintaining an absolute grip on power. The arrest of women's rights activists, including Lujain al-Haflo, who campaigned for the right to drive, further complicates MBS's image as a reformer. International human rights organizations continue to call attention to these actions, suggesting a deepening divide between MBS's public promises and the realities on the ground. Internally, MBS's leadership is characterized by a growing reliance on technology and surveillance to maintain control. His Vision 2030 includes substantial investments in digital infrastructure and the development of the digital economy, as well as an expansion of artificial intelligence and smart city projects like NEOM. However, these technological advancements are also accompanied by increasing state control over communications and a crackdown on dissent through sophisticated surveillance tools. Saudi Arabia's stance on technology and free expression has drawn criticism, particularly as the kingdom's online censorship mechanisms tighten, and activists who voice opposition to MBS's policies face intimidation or arrest. The regional implications of MBS's leadership cannot be overstated. His foreign policy is focused on positioning Saudi Arabia as a regional powerhouse that counters Iranian influence in the Middle East. The ongoing war in Yemen, which MBS initiated as part of a Saudi-led coalition in 2015, continues to be a point of contention. Despite claims that Saudi Arabia's intervention is necessary to safeguard the Yemeni government from Houthi rebels aligned with Iran, the conflict has been devastating for Yemen civilians and led to a humanitarian crisis that has attracted widespread international condemnation. The war's costs, both financially and in terms of human lives, have raised questions about the sustainability of MBS's approach to regional security. MBS's relationship with the United States has been key to his broader foreign policy strategy. The U.S. has long been a strategic ally of Saudi Arabia, and MBS has cultivated strong ties with U.S. presidents, particularly Donald Trump, with whom he shared mutual interests in countering Iran and promoting economic cooperation. However, MBS's ties with the West have been complicated by the Khashoggi murder, which strained relations with key U.S. officials and prompted call for a re-evaluation of U.S.-Saudi relations. In contrast, MBS has worked to strengthen ties with China and Russia, seeking to expand Saudi Arabia's partnerships and diversify its international relations beyond the West. This pivot to non-Western powers reflects a broader shift in Saudi foreign policy, as MBS seeks to position the kingdom as a leader in a multipolar world order. The assassination of Jamal Khashoggi in 2018 continues to haunt MBS, both in terms of his public image and his relationship with foreign governments. Despite extensive evidence pointing to the involvement of Saudi officials in Khashoggi's murder, MBS has denied any direct involvement, though many observers remain unconvinced of his claims. The murder, which took place inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, triggered global outrage and led to increased scrutiny of Saudi Arabia's human rights record. In the years following the incident, several Western countries imposed sanctions on Saudi officials and reduced military cooperation with the kingdom. While MBS's position has remained secure domestically, the Khashoggi affair remains a point of contention with the international community. Looking ahead, MBS's leadership will be shaped by his ability to manage both internal and external challenges. His ambitious economic and social reforms will face resistance from conservative elements within Saudi society, while his foreign policy interventions may become harder to justify if regional instability continues. The ongoing challenges of balancing modernization with traditionalism, controlling domestic dissent, and navigating complex geopolitical dynamics will require a high degree of strategic vision and adaptability. Ultimately, Mohammed bin Salman's legacy will depend on whether he can deliver on his vision of transforming Saudi Arabia into a modern, diversified, and influential nation on the global stage, while also managing the difficult realities of governance in a region marked by instability and complex socio-political challenges. His ability to adapt to changing global conditions, address domestic dissatisfaction, and balance his reform agenda with the demands of traditional power structures will determine the long-term impact of his leadership.